My name is Michelle Millis and I'll be your trainer for today. None of us is as smart as all of us is a saying that captures the essence of teamwork. However, if the team leader cannot get each team member to maximize their strengths, then he or she cannot move the team forward to achieve their mission. Today, we'll be learning about excelling as a highly effective team leader, and I will be discussing 4 strategic points that will help to build your team leader toolbox and be able to help you grow as a team leader. The first strategic point is create the conditions to ensure team success. So here we're talking about having certain elements in place so that your team is set up in a successful place. One of the things I want to talk about is having established roles with your team members. So a couple of those roles could be one, note taker, and they're very critical because that role is the person who will take notes, and a lot of times it's rotated. It will be your responsibility as a team leader to rotate, and that's what your team decides. Rotate that role so that each team member gets a chance to take notes during the team meeting. That will be important because it will serve as a record for the meetings that you've had, as well as for any team members who were not able to make the meeting. They can always refer back to the notes, or the minutes as they're called, the team minutes, so that they can stay abreast of what they missed at the meeting. Secondly are team norms. So norms are expected behaviors that you as the team leader and your team have agreed upon for expected behaviors within the team. One that I like when I'm a team leader is low tech, high engagement. So by low tech we mean please put cell phones on silent or vibrate or off, and also any other electronic equipment to eliminate as many distractions as possible. And then high engagement. So if you're really engaged in the meeting and not so focused on electronic equipment and devices, then we can have your presence at the meeting. So that's a suggestion. You and your team will decide which norms you want. The other thing you might want to consider for creating the conditions to ensure team success are resources. So making sure as the team leader that your team has all the resources it needs for the meeting. So for example, if a team member is doing a PowerPoint presentation during your team meeting, you as the team leader needs to make sure that you prepare in advance of that. That includes setting up the equipment, making sure that you test out all the technical glitches prior to the meeting, but making sure that everything is provided so that your team meeting can run smoothly. Additionally, you need to make sure that the equipment is available, or also you need to make sure if there's any information that your team needs some prior reading before the meeting or something they need to get after the meeting, that they're able to get that. Making sure they have everything that they need to feel comfortable in that meeting space. Sometimes it's water, but making sure they have what they need as a team member to feel really comfortable during the team. Another critical point is, how do we reward and recognize that team? So we want to be able to, because of all the hard work that you and the team have done together, to be able to recognize that. Myself, I've seen different examples of how that's done. Sometimes it's done through a newsletter. It's done through recognition ceremonies, and also something special from the team leader, a certificate or something else that you feel is appropriate. You as the team leader need to make a special effort to make sure that your team members are recognized for the hard work they've done under your leadership. The second strategic action is engage and excite the team with a shared vision. How as a team leader will you be able to do that? Because what you need to do is rally behind either an issue within the organization, or a new initiative, or it might be a new product that the team is coming together to find out whether or not the company wants to pursue that line. You as the team leader have to really be able to keep that shared vision in front of the team so that they understand why they're coming together to do this great work. There are several ways you can do this. Here are 2 ways I've done it in the past. One is, once the shared vision was decided upon and all the team members knew what that shared vision was, I'd include the shared vision on each month's agenda or each agenda meeting, each agenda, and make sure that it was there. It'll serve as a visual reminder during each meeting. Another way you can do that is to actually place the shared vision on a sheet. You can laminate it if you like, and then in a strategic part of the room, make sure that it's posted so that it's still another visual reminder of why you're doing these meetings and why the team's there to do great work. This shared vision is going to have your team do a breakthrough for your organization. It could be increased profitability, return on investment, a new initiative. Whatever the reason, you need to make sure as a team leader that you are the champion of that shared vision and you carry it so that your team knows it well every time they meet. The third strategic action is to leverage new technologies, remembering face-to-face is best. So with the current new technologies, there are various ways to have meetings. Skype, phone conferencing, and then video conferencing that may involve large screens with different members from either different states or different countries. With that in mind, you as the team leader have to do some critical things in order to make sure that everything goes flawless with these new technologies. One of the things I suggest you do is to make sure that everybody is trained on that technology. So if it's new technology and you haven't been exposed to it, you as the team leader needs to get trained first so that you can train your team members so they're very comfortable with this technology when they begin to use it for these meetings. Secondly, work with your IT department in your organization to make sure you, 1, have the budget for this technology, and 2, do you have the infrastructure for this technology? Oftentimes, team leaders don't anticipate that, and then when they go to set up these new technologies, there's a lot of technological glitches because there's no infrastructure in place to support the bandwidth or the network that's needed for that. So you as the team leader should make sure in advance that 1, your people are well trained as well as yourself on those technologies and they feel very comfortable moving forward, and that you work with your IT department to make sure that those technologies can support the infrastructure of the organization. A critical point here, remembering face-to-face is best. So when you are within the organization, maybe department to department, you can, after those virtual conference calls or other meetings, because maybe that team member was away for that period of time and they were calling in the Skype because they were away, to kind of go to their desk or their office and do some face-to-face time. Because remember, virtual, sometimes things get lost in translation. And we don't want that as the team leader because we want to be able to make sure everything is understood and clear about what it is expected by team members. When you have team members who are in another state or in another country as part of your team, it's critical for you as the team leader to do some follow-up work. I suggest that you call them on the telephone and just say, thank you so much for being a part of our team. Your contribution is invaluable to what our team's shared vision is. I'd like to talk to you about some other things. And it's up to you as the team leader to decide that, because it will be difficult for you to ascertain how they're doing via this virtual environment. One of the things, the last final strategic action is work on one-to-one relationship and team process dynamics. So here there's several things I want to cover. The first thing that I think is critical for you as a team leader is remembering, as the team leader, you're responsible for everything that goes on in that. So you'll be paying real close attention to those team members who seem to be not engaged, less vocal, if there's any conflicts in the team, and how are you going to solve those conflicts without derailing the team from accomplishing the shared vision. One of the things I suggest you do is to build those one-on-one relationships. And a great way to do it is me just giving you an example of how I did it in a prior work experience. So I was called in as a consultant to work with an organization who had two different departments who were going to work together, who had never worked together before, on an initiative. When I came in, I noticed that I needed to figure out how these two departments would come together, so I started doing bi-monthly meetings. As the team leader of that bi-monthly meeting, I started noticing that there were quite a few team members who were not participating, who were not engaged in the meetings. I then began to meet with team members outside of the meetings, either before the meeting or after the meeting at their availability, to figure out why they were not participating, not so engaged, and also not so vocal. I discovered 2 points. One is some team members need time outside of the meeting to process information. And then once they do that, they can come back and feel more comfortable with being more vocal, which I did begin to see in later meetings. Secondly, the two departments, one was employees and the other one was supervisors. Some employees felt really uncomfortable sharing their voice to supervisors who they felt might hold that against them later. And so it was my job as the team leader to come up with a plan to make a safe culture within that team so that everyone can feel comfortable with sharing their voice where it be valued and respected and no repercussions. So that's just an example of how you can work on one-on-one relationships and building a team process and dynamics. I also want to talk to you about how you need to make sure that you are following the stages of development. So right now, I want to just draw a little diagram of the different stages of the development, Tuckman stages of development actually, which there are 5 stages. Each stage is transitional. You can't get to any of them without going through each one. So the first one is forming. Okay. Then you're going to be storming. The next one is norming. Okay. And then you'll be performing. And lastly, there is a 5th stage, which is adjourning. In that adjournment stage, that is a time where you and your team need to figure out how you're going to close your time together. Okay. How are you going to close this chapter as a team? Whether you spend a small part of time together or a long part of time together. How will you close this? In my experience, I've seen teams do different things. Some have went on a retreat to debrief about their team experience. Some have written in a team journal. Some have shared a story with their colleagues or co-workers about this experience. But however you do that, you need to decide as a team and as the team leader how you will adjourn from this process. Being a team leader can be challenging and rewarding if you utilize the 4 strategic actions we learned about today. Add them to your toolbox in your growth as a leader, because you always want to be creating more leaders through the work that you're doing and the example you're setting. Thank you again.